Hi, and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today we are going to look at some audio from one of our future leaders meetings here at Peterman Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, where I talked about a John Maxwell principle and something he calls the law of the lid. He references leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. I could not believe in this any more than I do. It is something that always guides me in an understanding of where is my leadership ability, how can I increase that to ultimately increase my effectiveness. We dive into a number of stories that have been brought up in regard to the law of the lid and really illustrating how people's awareness of this is a key indicator into how they will grow into a leader. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode where we take a look at some audio discussing John Maxwell's principle, the law of the lid. Got some really good stuff today, all focused on leadership and what determines leadership, what determines a leader versus a follower, and how do we develop influence, which is ultimately leadership. So taking a lot of really all of this talk comes out of a book I just started reading. Probably you've heard of him if you follow in the leadership realm, John Maxwell. He's one of the better known people in leadership. This book here, never read it before. It's on its 10th anniversary, so obviously I've been missing out, but the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. This book, I'm only about 3 chapters in, and it's a very easy read. The chapters are only about 10 pages long, and it's hard hitting. A lot of good stories, a lot of good stuff going on in this. So I've actually taken for this just the first 2 chapters, so I'll be able to talk for an hour. I know you find that surprising, on the first 2 chapters of this book, so like 20 pages of text. So that's how much good stuff is in here, and stuff that I found relatable. So I want to start off, when he talk about the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, the first law that he talks about is what he calls the law of the lid. He said in the book that he starts out, anytime he talks, which I can only imagine he probably talks all over the world, I don't know how many times a year, to people, he always starts off with this one. And what he says is, the law of the lid, leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. So I think it's important to think about, regardless of what your position is, what your title is. Leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. Well, that starts to eat at you a little bit. Well, I've been doing this for a number of years. We've all heard that before. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been doing this for 20 years. Where's your leadership ability rank? Is that ultimately determining your effectiveness? Because if you think about it, we're never really growing if no one's actually listening, if no one's actually following. All we're doing is gaining years of experience, quote unquote. Well, so as you gain that experience, that's great, but is anyone following that? There's a number of stories, and he points out one. He talks about 2 guys by the name of Dick and Maurice. In 1937, they started a drive-in. So just like I don't even know if it's still around. I think I saw one not too long ago, like a Dog and Suds drive-in. Thought this was a unique concept. 1937, they started up, kind of goes gangbusters. As time goes on, 1948, they kind of streamline their process. Everything's going great. I mean, they're really knocking it out of park. They're out in California. Things are going great. They get up into the 50s, and they're looking to, okay, we've got this one location. We've got this restaurant. It's doing pretty good, and they've made some tweaks to it along the way as time's gone on. And really work to make a better product, and they're making money, and things are great, but they want to expand. They want to make this thing bigger. Well, restaurant, the key thing is franchise. Okay, we need to franchise these restaurants. We don't want to go open up, 15 of them around California or on into that. So in 52, they embark on trying to franchise this, trying to get this restaurant franchised, and it's really a massive failure, I think they said over the first 2 or 3 years, they sign up like 15 people, but maybe only 10 actually even open a store. And it's just not going well. So in 54, they partner with a guy who was actually selling them their machines to make milkshakes. And so they partner with this guy, and he's interested in the business and wants to continue it on and all this. And that Dick and Maurice are kind of giving him their struggles of this franchise thing. I just don't know if it's going to catch on. Like, we're just not really sure. And so the gentleman that they partnered with in 54, his name's Ray Kroc. He helps them develop the restaurant. And in 1961, he buys out Dick and Maurice of this franchise for $2.7 million. So quite a sizable amount of money there in 1961, but is confident enough to buy that restaurant out in 61. Through the years, or between 55 and 59, so you're going a little bit back before he buys it out completely, they were able to add 100 stores, and then 4 years after 59, they added 500 more. That is the story of McDonald's. That's how McDonald's got started. Today they have over 31,000 locations. But if you think back to the law of the lid, Dick and Maurice were not, their lid was far less than what Ray Kroc's was. Ray Kroc was a leader. He understood what leadership was. He was able to get people to follow him. Whereas Dick and Maurice struggled. They struggled to expand their influence. But if you're wanting to grow something, you have to increase your leadership ability. As I got reading through this, and I know what you're going to think, huge nerd. So I wake up this morning early, and this story just, obviously I went to bed kind of prepping this. I finished the last half of this with my daughter laying on my shoulder because my wife spent the night at her parents' house. So if I trail off here towards the end, it's because I can't read my own writing. It's very difficult to write in the dark about. But I wake up this morning and I'm thinking about this, and this story just hits me. So about, it's been probably 2 or 3 months ago. Again, kind of nerdy. I can get in a rabbit hole looking up HVAC companies across the country, this, that, and the other. And one of my mentors and a guy I look up to a lot, and I'm sure most of the people that deal with me on a daily basis have heard of this, is a guy named Jonathan Bancroft. Jonathan Bancroft runs Morris Jenkins down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And this is a guy who, about a year ago, I called him on the phone and said, "Hey, you guys just built a new building. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Do you mind?" And just got to talking to him about his business and different stuff like that, not even really knowing what I was getting into. And he's like, "Yeah, we don't normally let people. We get a lot of requests for people to come down and check out our facility. Since you called." He's a Nexstar member, and he's like, "Yeah, come on down." So in like a week, we bought a very expensive flight because I thought it was worth it. And we went down and checked out his building. Our new building is big, This thing is ginormous. But the funny thing is, through that first interaction, we've created a relationship where we kind of bounce ideas off of one another. You know, they've built a company that the story relates back to. I found an article from 1999. And I was reading through it. It was in one of the trade magazines, and they were named Contractor of the Year. And the funny thing is they were right at our size. They were almost identical to our size. At the time, Jonathan was a comfort advisor in the company, and I read through the article, and it just kind of highlighted some of the stuff they did, and then knowing where they're at today. To give you a picture, they'll do close to $70-80 million this year. I mean, they have like 400 people. I mean, it's just a massive, massive operation. I sent him over the article, so I found it and I emailed it to him. I say, it's always nice to take a look back. Congratulations on all the success, this, that, and the other. And the one thing that he told me that I think relates to this law of the lid is in the article it listed all their managers. So it listed out their service manager, listed out their sales manager, general manager, all of these people that were managers. And the one thing, he sent me an email back and he said, you know, blast from the past. I think it may even had a picture of him from '99 in there, so it was even more special. But you know, the one thing he told me, he goes, of those 9 people that were listed as managers in '99, 2 of them are still with the company and they're in a lesser role. That got me thinking, you know, okay, why is that? And as I read through this chapter again yesterday, it hit me. They did not increase their leadership ability. As a leader, you're leading so many people. Well, your influence stretches however many people you got in your department. Well, when you go from 20 to fast forward 70, 80, well, that's about 4 times the amount of revenue, which is probably going to equate to roughly about 4 times the people. So can you lead that many people? Does your influence spread that wide? You know, I tell you that story not to you know, scare anybody or anything like that, but I think it points to the fact that it truly is our leadership ability really determines our level of effectiveness. In their organization, there were people that did not understand that. There were people that did not increase their leadership ability, and thus they got passed up, or they had to bring in somebody else that had the influence that could lead that robust of an organization. And that is why I am so happy that we do things like this, that we are having the conversations that we're having, because we're developing our leadership ability. It doesn't matter what role you're in. It doesn't matter about moving up the chain, doesn't matter about moving across the chain, whatever it is, we can all work to develop our leadership ability, because we're all leading. You may not think you are, but everybody's watching. When you talk about, oh yeah, that guy, he really knows his stuff, he's really good, I really like working with him, that's leadership. When you think about the guy who you always call when you have a problem, why do you always call him? Well, he's got the answer, and he's not going to treat me like I'm stupid, and you know, he acknowledges the fact that I got a question and he's happy to answer the phone and help me out. That's leadership. Leadership can sometimes be a fancy word. It's not. It really isn't. It's about creating a relationship with people and caring about them. Taking an interest in what they are doing and influencing them to do better. That's what leadership is. It's very simple. Sometimes it just gets tagged as, well, you know, oh, I don't have to be a leader. I'm telling you right now, if we can get everybody in the company to really embrace leadership, think about how crazy that would be. You know, I always talk about at company meetings, reach out and help somebody. That's the first step of leadership. Reach out and help somebody. Because by reaching out and helping somebody, you start to create a relationship. Think about some of the deepest relationships you have with people here at work. The reason you have those is because probably that person's helped you. Probably that person's reached out in a time of need. Probably that person's picked you up when you were down. That's all it is. It's a very simple concept. We just have to be cognizant of that. And then be cognizant of how we come off on a daily basis. Because while it's very simple to create the relationship, it's also very simple to detract from that relationship in how we come off to people. So we have to be very, very careful of that. You know, leadership is it often gets caught up in, you know, I'm this position now I move into a manager, now I'm a leader. Not exactly. So leadership skills are completely different than running a service call, than installing a system, whatever it may be. Those are our technical skills. Our leadership skills are when we engage somebody else. And so sometimes the thing is, well, I'm going to be the best installer, I'm going to be the best technician because I want to be the service manager. I mean, that's a noble goal, and I'm all about it. However, what's going to get you into that position is not how much you know about the inner workings of a furnace or a water heater or plumbing or whatever it is. It's about how much influence can you push out onto others. That's what it's about. Now the great thing is we can develop the two skills at the same time. And your technical ability, that's not to say you can't use that in leadership. Because that's where it comes from, you know, experience and know-how and having the answers for people and all that good stuff. It's going to be a piece, but we also have to understand that there is another piece to it, and that's leadership. That's understanding that we have to create relationships and we've got to influence people. That's where that's at. You know, the cool thing that that I've thought about as I was thinking about this is oftentimes I feel like we as people focus on the wrong things. You know, we want to grow. We want to grow our department. We want to grow our capacity. We want to do all this stuff. But when it comes to looking at leadership and its implications on effectiveness, we oftentimes focus on totally the wrong things. We're focused on, you know, continued knowledge and learning a lot about this particular thing and our craft and this, that, and the other, when really what we need to be focusing on is empowering others. Because the best way to grow is to empower others to do what you yourself can do. It's a whole heck of a lot better if you're a service manager, if you have 8 techs that may not have your knowledge level here, but you've empowered them to go from here to here, but there's 8 of them. Well, they can do a whole hell of a lot more than you can by yourself. And that's just simple math. But we oftentimes try to see, well, how much more can I get here? How much more can I get here while our people are still here? And we don't ever want to, we just keep going like this. Well, that gap gets further and further. What's created in this gap? Frustration. Why don't they understand? I don't get why they won't do it my way. That's where that frustration comes in. We were in a meeting the other day and Tony said it's a power struggle. That's where that power struggle is. As a leader, we've got to bring our people up and up and up and up until we're moving this boat together. And as we're bringing them up, we are moving it together, which is where we want to be. That's where everybody feels empowered. That's where everybody feels like, you know what, I can make a decision, and if it's the wrong one, by God, I know whoever's leading us, they're going to be behind me 110%. It's all right to make a mistake. I got to try it, but I know he's all right with me trying it. I know she's all right with me trying this idea, because they're going to come right behind me and pick me back up and keep me moving up the ladder. You know, we had some training that I talked about 2 weeks ago before Thanksgiving, where the guy that we had in, Jack Needham, talked about fixing people. Everybody's out to fix people. You know, you bring this guy in, he's just, we're so excited about this technician. 2 weeks later, Jiminy Christmas, what were we thinking? Well, whose fault's that? Well, it seems to be yours, because you brought him in and had all this great, you know, he was going to be awesome and this, that, and the other, but all of a sudden it's his fault. Why isn't he doing it right? Well, did we ever show him? Did we ever take the time to build the relationship with him, to understand where he came from? I don't know. You know, the team is always a reflection of the leader. You know, one of the analogies that John brings up in this that I was like, oh, that makes total sense, but I never thought about it in terms of leaderships, was sports teams. So here in a couple weeks when the NFL season ends, those of you that follow the NFL, sometimes even less than a day, sometimes they fire them on the last day of the game, which I just thinking like, God, talk about awkward conversations. That has got to be up there. I would never want to have that one. But you'll see about even on the last day of the NFL season on through about 3 days afterwards, they'll fire probably 7-8 coaches. Just off with their, some guys, they've been there like a year. Like, the guys coached 16 games. By God, give them a shot. But what is that? And then I started to think about it from the reverse side. So essentially, as an owner of an NFL team, you probably got talent on that team. I'm going to guess. You know, the Colts are probably, if you line player for player up with any team in the NFL, now some positions better than others, I get it, but all in all, probably talent pool, probably about the same as every other team in the NFL. These are all the best of the best players. I mean, there's no higher level than the NFL. So what does a team's success come down to? Well, it comes down to leadership. And there is no way under God's green earth I would ever want to lead an NFL team. You're talking 20-somethings making just gobs of money, more money than you, and you're supposed to empower them to be at their best. Well, good luck. But that is why head coaches get fired, because they know, and that's why you see NFL teams, and I think you see it in the NFL more than any other sport. If you watch teams, they'll go from last to making the playoffs and like this great team, and you're like, well, where did they come from? What happened? And then you'll also see teams, you know, like what's a good example? Like the Falcons this year. Like, they have like almost the same team. Like, what happened? Well, there again, comes back to leadership. They probably got some new players. They probably mixed some stuff up, but ultimately the leader of that team couldn't get that group to push the ball forward together. They just couldn't. So I think it's important to understand, where is your lid of leadership? Where are you at? You know, he has a chart in here that's like an XY axis, and it shows leadership ability on the Y axis, effectiveness on the X. And he shows that, you know, you can have all the drive in the world. You can want to be the biggest, baddest guy on the block, and your effectiveness is out to a 9 if you're on like a 10 scale, if that makes sense. I know I'm kind of drawing this with my hands, but You can be just so motivated, so everything, but yet your leadership ability is low. And what he's showing is that, yes, it takes motivation, but that leadership ability, as you raise that, your capacity increases exponentially in how you can grow things, in how you can lead.